Hello everybody and welcome to this special episode of Made in Midlands TV, where we'll be talking about apprenticeships and bridging the engineering and manufacturing skills gap. My name's Adam Tipper and I'm joined today by Andrew Cartwright, who's Deputy Director of Employer Engagement at the City of Wolverhampton College, and Owen Needles, who's Training Supervisor from Heller Machine Tools. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
So Owen, first question for yourself. So referencing a recent manufacturing purchasing managers index, the number of senior, highly skilled engineers across the board in the UK has dropped to its lowest level in the last 3 years. So with that in mind, how vital is it, do you believe, for manufacturers to address the skills gap within the sector, and how important are apprenticeships in achieving this?
I think it's hugely important for manufacturers of all different types of products to get involved in looking at the skills gap, to see what the difference is between where they need to be right now and, more importantly, in the future, in the next 5 to 10 years. And I see apprentices as hugely important within that because of the time frame that we're looking as a company to bring apprentices on track. So we can look at the areas that within the company that we feel we need to cover and what we're looking forward to, and then we can bring apprentices in to cover that 5-year, 10-year gap.
Sure. Okay. Excellent. So, Andrew, organisations are starting to make greater efforts to engage with colleges, universities, schools, try and reinvigorate a bit of interest in advanced manufacturing in particular within young people. But in your opinion, how do we continue to get young people excited about a career in engineering and manufacturing?
When I was a kid, I'm obviously much older than you two, there was things called Baker Days. And Baker Days were when teachers had the day off, because Lord Baker was Education Secretary. Well, Lord Baker and a lady called Baroness Morris have just put a clause through to government to adapt the education bill, which is going to force schools to invest in colleges and training providers to go into schools to speak to younger people, and that's key. By the time they leave school at 18, learners are very often, they know which track they're going to go on, they know where they're going to go. What we need to do is get into them early. Yes. We need to get into them, not at 10, not at 11, 12, we need to get into them when they're 7 and 8. Companies like Heller, colleges like City of Wolverhampton College need to get into the learners early. The Baker Clause, as it's being called, will force schools to allow us to go in. Will force schools to allow them to open the doors to colleges and employers to speak to learners early, learners and parents early, about the benefits of not just manufacturing and engineering, but all apprenticeships, whether that's hairdressing, accounting, making a chair, making a television programme.
Okay, very interesting take on it. Owen, Heller Machine Tools have got a vibrant apprenticeship programme. Can you tell us a little bit about how it started and its progress to date?
Yeah, Heller started our apprenticeship programme back in 1985, so we've been taking on apprentices for over 30 years now. I'm an apprentice from the Heller programme from 1987, way back when. So we're very experienced in taking apprentices and understanding their requirements and their needs and helping the needs of the company as well. We find apprentices are a crucial part of our company. We've currently got 13 apprentices working on apprenticeships at the moment. We're currently recruiting because it's that time of the year where we're recruiting for the next intake, so we're hoping to take 4 or 5 apprentices on this year. We've currently got 27 ex-Heller apprentices working at the company, so that's about 1/6 of our UK workforce. So there's a big input into Heller is based around the apprenticeship. So it's a huge part of what we do.
Quite a large proportion.
And it's a large proportion. You know, we're not a huge company, but to have 1/6 of our workforce who have come through the process, and it helps us ingrain the right ethos from a quality perspective, and helps us grow as a company.
Superb. That's a real success story, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Andrew, touching on the Apprenticeship Levy now,
yeah,
which has been recently introduced, which our viewers may be familiar with, or potentially not, as the case may be. The government's introduced...
Interesting enough, sorry, but about 1/3 of employers don't know anything about the levy.
I can believe it, yes.
A study's just just come out from CMI, I think, that says that a third of their people don't know enough about the levy, if anything about the levy, which is terrifying when it started this month.
Yes, I suppose it's quite feasible that a payment could have hit the account without anybody really understanding how to get the most out of it.
In May, which is when, the week after next, money will start to leave business accounts based on April's wage bill. And there are companies that we're speaking to now that don't know what that amount of money will be and don't know what they can do with it.
So what can businesses do how can they, if they're paying into the levy, how should businesses make the most out of it?
They need to speak to people. Of course, the majority of companies won't pay the levy, and that's important to remember. The majorities of companies in this country are smaller than 249 people. They've got a wage bill of less than £3 million, and so they won't have to pay this 0.5% tax. It's a small majority. About 82 companies in Wolverhampton, for example, have got to pay the apprentice levy. Those companies, if they don't know how to use it to its best potential, they need to speak to an expert. Obviously, I would say City of Wolverhampton College. Why wouldn't I? But their local training provider, their local college can explain to them how the levy works. There are government websites. .gov have finally got quite a lot of good information on there. It's a little bit late, but there is some good information on there that companies can go on and look through, work through the facts. And there are some good interactive tools that people can put their wage bill into, and it will tell them exactly how much their levy is, and then they can work out how they want to spend it to improve their productivity or their succession planning, as Hella did.
Yeah, I think the online tools are quite good, but it takes a bit of work to get all the information to enter it. It's normally the sort of thing that you end up talking to other departments about, because you need to talk to payroll, etc., to find all the relevant information. I think that once you've got all that information in, I think the system works quite well. It's quite user friendly.
And I was reading the other day that the government aims to create 3 million apprenticeship starts by 2020.
That's right.
Do you think, Andrew, that the levy will create a wave of interest amongst employers, companies like Hella, engineering and manufacturing community, to take on more apprentices?
I think it's focused the mind. Whenever you pay extra in tax, it doesn't matter whether you're a small business, an SME, or a large levy payer, extra tax is going to focus the mind. Our industry, my industry, I'm an engineer, my industry hasn't invested heavily in apprenticeships for a long time. We're in the hub of engineering in the Midlands here. And I think all engineering companies would say that they perhaps haven't invested, perhaps to the extent that Hella has over the years. What the levy's going to do is focus, and again I say it's not just engineering companies that are paying the levy, it's any company with over a £3 million wage bill. It's focusing the mind and allowing them an average age. I don't know what Hella's average age of workforce is, but in most companies I hear it's about 52, 53, young, as I would say. We're relatively old to be mauling around a shop floor, so it's an opportunity to start succession planning. And we're absolutely right. You need to, before you get onto the online tools, you need to get all your information together. So a matrix of who's leaving when, and how you can then replace those skill sets with an apprentice who's trained in the Hella way or whichever company you want.
Superb. So Owen, back to yourself. I have heard companies remark that the apprenticeship levy could be hard to administrate. So what experience do you have so far of administrating the levy, and do you believe it is hard, difficult?
I've got no experience whatsoever. There's your first cut right there. I've already answered that question to the best of my ability earlier on. I've got absolutely no experience. HR have dealt with all of that.
I think as well, this could
I had to go to see HR to ask them how difficult or easy it was.
And I think lots of companies are like that. It's not HR, it's not wages, it's not apprenticeships. It's a combination of everybody. Yeah. And some of the companies that we've been working with that I would never dream of naming here, but have created some new posts, or a new post at least. We're a levy payer. Wolverhampton College pays the levy. We've created a new post So one of my team is looking after our levy, planning the levy, looking at how we're going to be using it, whether that's with internal apprenticeships, professional apprenticeships for staff that work for us already, or whether they're new apprenticeships. It's a combination of people. It's HR, because you've got to, if you're bringing somebody on new, you've got to increase them into your wage bill. If it's somebody who exists in the company already, you've got to look at, it's not CPD, it's not continual professional development, it's enriching an individual to be able to move on in the company, to move forward through the company, to best suit the needs of the company. But then you've got to have wages involved, because you're going to increase their wages either at some point when they've achieved the training, or because it's a new member of staff. And then you've got to have the training manager involved, because they're going to be managing the training. So you do need this fourth person, I think, to enable that management to work smoothly. Planning's the key.
Very interesting insight, very interesting take. So, Owen, the levy means that employers that are committed to training should get back more than what they put in. Do you believe this to be the case with Hella?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the numbers of apprentices that we take on, and because of the funding band that they fall within, because they're at the high end of the funding band, then Hella, for example, won't be too affected by the changes, because we'll still end up taking more from the pot than we're actually putting in. So I think for us it's not a major change, but I think Andy's right, it'll start focusing the minds of those people who aren't currently taking on apprentices, but all of a sudden they're going to start paying that money towards them, and they'll start to think, well, hold on, if we're paying the money, we might as well be getting the advantage of the increased training and bringing people on through those routes.
Absolutely.
You know, even if you don't spend all your levy, every pound spent on an apprentice brings £3 in. Every study shows that. So even if, whether you're a non-levy payer or a levy payer, that investment in the individual will pay dividends into your company. It will increase your productivity, it will increase the potential of that individual to move through the company at a relatively cheaper rate. If you think about it, you're starting somebody at a rate of pay, should there be a new apprentice, they can move, just as Owen said, learning the Hella way, we'll call it, it's a new term, I'll charge you for that later. We can move that individual through with the ethos of the company. You haven't got to bother with training them separately by bringing a brand new engineer in. You can create your own, you can grow your own. If you're doing that with existing staff, you can enable those individuals who perhaps haven't got the aspirations in their normal job to move through the stages of a company. But by using a professional apprenticeship, you can move those people through, again, increasing productivity, increasing the output from that individual, and therefore the company.
And I think that's something that a lot of people might not be aware of. It's the fact that you could use the levy to train existing staff as well as taking on new apprentices.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just taking new starters on, straight from school or older, as we frequently do at Hella, but it's also looking at your own staff, going back to the skills gap and looking, your matrix and understanding what people you could push through the company into higher positions and the like. So it's internally that people need to be looking, not just bringing new people into the company. For a smaller company where you're not trying to bring in more overheads of more staff, you could still be spending that money in a productive way, benefiting the company of improving the current stuff that you've got.
Yes, yeah. And then finally, the decision to leave the EU without doubt poses a bit of a risk for talent acquisition, as a lot of sort of engineering and manufacturing companies may rely on labour, much needed talent sourced from the EU. With that in mind, what are both of your opinions regarding, does that place more importance on upskilling existing workers? Does it place more importance on taking on apprentices and investing in youth?
I think for a lot of companies it will. Speaking personally from a Hella perspective, it won't have much impact on us because we've always taken people from the local area, particularly when you're talking young apprentices. For them to be miles away from the company or the training provider that we're sending them to at the start, it just doesn't work. Generally you've got a 16-year-old who's got no way of transporting themselves, they're not passed the driving test or anything like that. So to us, local is fundamental. So it doesn't have a big impact on what we do, but other people, there's a lot of different companies out there with different scenarios, and I can see it having a little bit of an impact on other companies.
I think it'll be the time scale of Article 50. It'll be how long that. I think as a company, we think that our partners will continue to take talent from the European Union for a number of years, but that gives us the opportunity to start training local people and local UK people, because people will travel. It's a travelling world now. Our country, people tend not to stay just in Wolverhampton or in their town. People will move. People will take the skill set that they've learned. So I think we will continue for a while to take people from the European Union. But what this programme, what the levy will enable us to do, is start a succession plan for those people either deciding that it's too expensive to work here, or deciding that they're now too old to be travelling to us, and we can replace those people with existing staff by training them up, or by new staff enabling them to meet the needs of the business.
Superb. And to close then, for the people watching this episode, from the both of you, what advice would you give to companies who are now paying into the levy in order to get the most out of the levy?
I think they've covered the major point from my perspective, which is the fact that we can train people within the company. I think the general mindset is all about bringing in new people, but the fact that you can train your own people within the company is a major boost. Something that's always affected Hella, which has never stopped us, but it's always troubled me, is the fact that we've always been, if we've taken on slightly older apprentices, which we've done in the past and found very successful, so we're talking 20, 25, etc., we've been penalised financially for taking on the older apprentices. One of the real bonuses of the levy from my perspective is that that's not the case now. So it hopefully will encourage other companies to take on older apprentices as well, which we found very successful, because you've got past some of those troublesome years sometimes with the youngsters. So I think that's something that people need to bear in mind.
Okay, Andrew?
Take advice. That's the major advice from me. Go to your local training provider, come to your local college, take advice so that you can learn that they haven't got to be 16 to 18, as Owen says, they can be 19 plus. You can help your own employees to move through. Take advice, come to an open day, tweet, Facebook, whatever it is you do in a company, come in, see us, and we've got experts who can help. I don't think anybody thinks that they've got to be an expert themselves. That's what we're here for.
Superb. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Been a very insightful discussion. Hope you've enjoyed watching it wherever you are, and we'll join us next time for another special episode of Made in Midlands TV. Thank you.